deconverted man here. I've got a bad taco. He's a 14th version of all the other bad tacos. He ate tacos 0 through 13. And he's here, and we're going to talk, and I'm going to ask him all these questions. So, hi, Bad Taco. How you doing?
What's up, deconverted man? I'm doing good.
Thank you for coming. I noticed you'd subscribed to me, and I was like looking at recent subscribers, and I was like, who's this? I clicked on you. I'm like, it's a theist. I'm gonna eat them, and I did. I ate the bad taco, and it was not delicious because it's a bad taco. I'm gonna keep referencing the bad taco. BT, it's the BT and the DM. All right, so you're a theist of some sort. Why don't you tell the viewers what is that? What you got there? What's going on with that?
So I am a Christian. In specific, I'm a Lutheran. I don't hold to classical theistic conceptions. I hold to something called panentheism, which essentially means that it differs from pantheism in that the universe is not, God isn't literally the universe. However, the universe is a part of God. And I came to this because of Immanuel Kant in the two worlds hypothesis. And so I'm also I'm on the fence about process theology as well, but that's essentially my niche theistic view. And theism is just, I affirm that God exists, and it's the classical, semi-classical conception of God, omnipotence, omniscience, etc.
Okay, and were you raised in the religion, or did you come to it later?
I I was raised in a religious household. I did, however, stray. I would say we weren't very strict. We would attend church probably 9 to 8 times a year, and we didn't very often pray or listen to Christian music. However, my grandparents were very strict, and whenever I went over there, they would greet me with young Earth creationism and Kent Hovind and stuff like that, and Bible charts and stuff like that, which were interesting at the time. And then I started getting recommended at about the age of 9 to 10, Matt Dillahunty and stuff like that in my YouTube feed. Sorry, I got a bit of a cough. And so I started watching them, and I was like, these guys are very eloquently spoken. They obviously know what they talk about. So God probably, why should I care about God? And, just the normal stuff. And then the reverse started happening. At first, I was getting the low-hanging fruit theists in my YouTube algorithm. And then I thought at the time he was like the greatest thing ever. I got William Lane Craig in my recommendations, and I saw a debate of his, and I was like, this guy has really good rhetoric. He obviously knows the arguments. Like these are good sounding responses. And although I don't really I don't agree with most of the stuff he says anymore, I've begun to drift to the academic side of all the apologia, and he was kind of my gateway to that, so I can respect him for that.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it really sounds, that you've gone deeper than many I've interacted with, and that can be good. That could be bad. I mean, at least you're recognizing that, some of the arguments are flawed, and that's always good, because far too many apologists I've interacted with just like they refuse to acknowledge that any argument has any flaw. So do you take a hard stance on any particular argument that you're like, oh, this one's perfect, or is it more like,
I think I remember seeing something by a guy named Counter Apologist on Twitter, and he said, do you think that which do you think is oh wait I completely butchered this. Do you think that atheism is as irrational as theism? And this was being asked by a anti-atheist agnostic. And the guy said, I believe atheism is just as irrational as theism, because they're both rational positions that one can hold. And I And since reading that really settled with me. I think that really, from what I've seen, there's premises for arguments which have been formulated for thousands of years. The arguments are essentially all valid in some sort of way. It's just like inference to the best. That's not all. That's not all arguments. Like the one you were saying, look at the trees. Obviously, isn't a valid argument, but so I think like what it comes down to is like inference to the best explanation, and it's really like these cumulative cases like that you get for like in conjunct you have teleological, christological, and cosmological arguments primarily, and it's just like a very strong and structured, well, really philosophical methodology why someone is an atheist or a theist.
Okay, that's a long way of saying that the arguments all suck and we're right now. Just messing with it. So it seems like the answer to the question of, you know, are you able to see the arguments have flaws is kind of. I mean, is there a more direct answer to? Are you, you know, is there? Well, I think I asked if any argument was.
Do you want me to
perfect.
state the flaws I find in theistic arguments?
Well, I was just wondering if there was like a argument or some argument that you thought was flawless versus an argument that you're like, oh yeah, that one sucks. Like you're willing to say that, you know, some arguments flawed, and you're willing, and then there's one that's like, no, that's my argument. That's the one that I love, or something like that. You know, just if you're willing to do either way.
Sure. I'll start with the one I find flawed. It's going to be the Kalam cosmological argument.
All right, you're my favorite now.
I've seen an overwhelming amount of evidence presenting that a theory of time is just absurd. It has no scientific backing, and it's very clear that Craig quickly rushed to double down on the argument because he spent his entire work at college writing a dissertation on it, and then he realized after making the argument that he was crossing the gap here of stating that a theory of time, well, assuming that a theory of time is already true, and then also like you have more analytical stuff that gets into that, like token sentences and stuff, and I don't find that convincing because the arguments that he gives in defense of a theory of time is just like really bad appeal to common sense and just stuff like that. And I think the one which I found most I've obviously my bad. Let me cough for 1 second.
No, it's all right. All right. He's got a cough, man.
The one which I found to be the most attractive and not have any flaws that I've heard so far is the Proust Rasmussen modal contingency argument. And
which
also
is what we're going to be doing a series on, I think.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. So I have to understand what the words are. What is it saying? Why is it written this way? Now, I want to clarify, because we talked about this before we went live, but just, you know, typical question, you know, are you okay with biological evolution, the Earth being for billions of years old? I want to say 4.54 and the universe 13. And if I'm wrong, I suck. Are you okay with all that? That I suck?
I've seen like I've just got done with chemistry, biology, and I'm gonna take physics next year. And so far, there's literally no convincing case for a young Earth. There's no convincing case for a for evolution not being true. The overwhelming amount of empirical evidence is clearly in favor of evolution. Now, at the same time, I often hear, you know, atheists say like, "Oh, well, now you're just, you know, trying to rush in and try and agree with it." And the church father which I respect the most. His name is Origen of Alexandria, and even in 250 AD, he held a very allegorical view of creation, and he said it was silly to think that the omnipotent God of the universe were to make a garden and remove someone's rib cage and put it into another person's.
Yeah, it there is, of course, well, biologus tries to make the Bible fit the science, if you will. So there is a this question of, well, if Genesis is allegorical, then what does that mean? Does that mean there was no original sin? What's going on then with the story seems to kind of start breaking down. Is there some sort of resolution to that? Is it better to just say, well, Genesis is a combination of different things and it's not really meant to be uh maybe it's not even meant to be part of the story, or a more liberal view of the overarching history of the Bible and how it came together, and say, look, we got some stuff wrong. I mean, what I know that's a complicated question. Let me try to simplify this. Like with Genesis and books, other things is, do you take more of a liberal view of that this doesn't have to be the word of God, but it's there's um, room for error.
I take the view that of I don't know, and I accept that I don't know, and I ultimately base my faith off the crux of the crux of the biblical narrative, which is the resurrection in Jesus Christ. And to me, so long as I am able to justify that that occurred in my worldview, then, well, based off Christological arguing, I'm willing to accept the rest of the Bible. Now, am I interpreting it the right way? I don't know, but I try to do the best that I can, and I try to pray the best that I can every day. And I'm not going to tell my kid, that what they're learning in school is wrong because of that. Uh, However, like, that doesn't necessarily mean that, I'm going to accept that it would be wrong that an arc were to be made or something like that. I just take the position of the science shows that it's not possible. I could be interpreting it the wrong way, etc. I'm not going to know. And really, like, it's really a pretty unessential doctrine in the faith of whether or not all those things actually happened in the Old Testament. The most essential part is whether or not God wants us to follow the laws, which he says, and whether or not, Jesus Christ resurrected for our sins, because ultimately kind of everything in the Old Testament is just a predecessor to the ultimate character. Like Jesus Christ is the Old Testament is basically the prequel to the New Testament, because Jesus Christ is indeed the central figure of Christianity. And so long as I can so long as I can justify that, then I personally just say, like, I don't know, and I'm comfortable with saying I don't know.
Okay, that's very fair. Well, how is it that you're kind of able to square? Jesus can come back from the dead, but it doesn't really make sense that that a rib is taken out and turned into a person. I mean, if one is possible, then the other is possible, or is it?
Yeah, I was just saying that based off intuition. That's obviously not an argument or anything.
Right. Yeah. But what would I mean, there's many ways to look at it. Like I view the stories of the Bible as kind of a combination of different stories that existed at the time. Genesis is a great example. It's like all these other stories existed at the time, and it seems like they just you know put them all together. Um, and then of course there's a question of where what's the oldest manuscripts that we have, and were those translated, or did they what how did the version of the thing that I'm holding come together? And uh, I have found, sadly, that many theists don't have an answer to that, very deep question of like, have you even um, looked at the history of how your own Bible got to be where it was, and you
Right.
know,
I've studied like the copycat theories and Gilgamesh and all that, and I can I I can definitely see like a perennial, if I'm pronouncing that right, a perennialism, but at the same time, I don't think like this guy named Inspiring Philosophy has made a really great video on like why all these copycat theories ultimately fail. I can't like memorize them word for word, but essentially comes down to a lot of these religions like when the copycat theories are talked about, like I think people say well, what's one of the popular ones, like who is the Egyptian god, I'm forgetting their name, but like people say like they were born on the 25th, and then they were they were born of a virgin. Like some of this stuff that they say is just flat out wrong, because if you read the scholars on of those religions, they're like, no, that's not said in any scripture. And then like Gilgamesh, which shares like similar stories. I remember Inspiring Philosophy was pointing out that there's actually like really big differences between them. And with the whole copycat theory thing, like I can accept that different religions have some sort of perennial ultimate truth, which is the golden rule and other global events which were depicted in the Bible. But like I just don't find it a defeater to my main justification, which is Jesus Christ, because really uh, even the major copier of Christianity, Islam, rejects the resurrection. That God dying for people who turned his back on him is a story that's not really found in any other religion. It just seems so anti-cultural that this person who is depicted in all the other stories and fables as a cruel man who has his is a stoic figure with his arms crossed looking down at us from heaven, actually was a kind-hearted person who went around and helped the poor and sacrificed himself under a tremendous pain. So I haven't seen very many equivalents to Jesus Christ in that manner.
mm. Yeah, I'm aware chat's like interacting with us. It's very difficult. It's like, chat, stop. Yeah, okay, good. That's why I brought in the one question CJS, and I saw you. It's like, yeah, it's more beautiful, the idea of God.
Yeah, I that's another thing.
Is yeah, it's kind of a misspeak. It's intuition versus beauty, or whatever, however you want to put
With
it.
my well, that's I wasn't misspeaking there. With my fideism, when it comes to stuff where I when it comes to stuff where I can't know about something, instead of or like I accept that I don't know because I'm justified in my epistemology or my belief in the crucifixion. If it involves something like Nephilim or something like that, I'll typically base my metric off. Obviously, this isn't going to convert anyone or convince them of that specific doctrine or whatever. Just whatever I find more beautiful.
Hmm. I mean, forgive me for saying it this way. It seems a bit arbitrary.
It
I mean, I,
is.
I mean, I understand it from an emotional, point, but
I
um,
yeah, I try to appreciate God with both my mind and soul.
okay. Now you mentioned commandments. There's 613 some odd commandments, throughout the Torah slash Old Testament. Uh, but then Jesus comes along and says, "Well, no, you only have one." Although you could say, well, he also says keep them all. So which is it? I guess whichever one you said last is what mattered. You know, uh, are the 613 laws still relevant, or are they wiped out by the new law?
I
Or
think I don't think they're necessarily wiped out. I think that they're relevant in the sense that it's an important part of biblical history, but I think that when Jesus Christ was saying keep them, uh, he was essentially referring to the golden rule ultimately resembles the complete commandment. It's ultimately it really like as it I think it also says as long as you are following true love, you are following God's law. Let me get that Bible quote. It says something.
Bible quote. I'm going to sing while he finds it.
Here, James 2:8. If you really keep the royal law found in Scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, you are fulfilling the whole law.
Okay. Yeah, I did a thing about that. I don't know if it was in reference to you or whatever. At some point, I said this where I can imagine that the guy that was brought up with the laws, and he was brought up that if you rebel, if you are you misbehave enough, we're gonna take you to the edge of town and stone you to death. And so unruly is the word. If you're unruly, you're screwed. And he's like, okay, I'm not going to be unruly. And then he gets to adulthood and has a kid of his own, and so he recognizes this idea as love. And he's like, well, my kid is unruly. I'm taking him to the edge of town and stone him to death because that's love. That's loving me like I love them. And this kid's like, well, I'm unruly. He's like, well, okay. So what, is there, because he is loving the way that, he's obeying the commandment of love others as you love yourself. So he's still doing the thing that I hope we would object to, which is stoning your kid to death for being unruly.
Right.
It's just,
I think that I think it's pretty clearly said in 1 Corinthians 13 exactly what love is. The love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. And because of that, I don't think that there's really what am I going to say here? Because of that, I don't think like stoning your kid to death could really be fit into Paul's description of love. And also Jesus Christ and the prostitute. Just that would be my issue with that.
yeah, I mean, I could keep going with it and really press it. It's like, yeah, stone everyone. It's a, well, I guess we could bring in the objective moral thing. I'm trying to remember. I wasn't one of the ones. Was it one of the ones? No, I wasn't. Like, is that the one I was supposed to say? No. I hope not. And my brain is like, I don't remember it anymore. I don't know where do you stand on it? Maybe that's a better question. Where do you stand on objective moral values versus, what would be the ethical system that you're utilizing?
Well, I have a Platonistic view of pretty much almost everything a Neoplatonic view of a lot of things in my metaphysics. So I think that love is an objective moral, and I think that morality is objective and a universal. Same with beauty, and I think like all that stuff are like necessary, just like numbers, and so that's my stance on that. And I think that. One second.
Yeah.
I think that I think the golden commandment is so long as you're fully fulfilling that, and there's 2 great commandments. That's the main one, but it stems from the other one. Whoever loves God with all their heart, body, soul, and mind love God with all your heart, body, soul, and mind. I would say so long as you do that and always pursue truth, I think that's you're on the right path. Now, do I know what the objective morality is to a dot and a T? No. Can I tell you whether or not you're going to hell? No, I'm not God. But I think I can judge things wisely based off experience, and I think that I can be sure to be gentle in the things which I judge others for and stuff like that.
Okay, and what ethical system would you be under?
Just an well, I guess for most things, an Augustinian or in Catholic view.
Okay, well, is it like DCT or utilitarian or
Oh, okay. I'm a natural lawist.
okay, all right, yeah, because I wasn't sure you were under because there's like a list of different ethical systems. It's like
Right.
not everybody knows about that, and I always feel like the conversation is lacking when it's like, well, what morals, like what about the ethical system? It's like I've got utilitarian. There's flaws with it. I know that. And then there's DCT. There's lots of flaws with DCT.
Right.
No ethical system. Is perfect if there is such a thing as perfect. And so you have, of course, meta ethics where you try to contrast the ethical systems and all that. And it just seems like we're all trying to figure out what are the rules to this game that we're playing. Um and I get with staying with that analogy is like, well, if we humans made up the rules, we made up this game of morals, if you will, it doesn't invalidate it. It's like we're still trying to all obey the rules. It's just we have some people are trying to play chess and some people are trying to play checkers, and it's like you're not even playing the right game. And
Right.
it's complicated, and
Right.
the I guess the problem I have, broadly speaking, was when you have somebody that says, okay, my God says I have to kill you, it's a problem because you can't talk them out of that. They really think that that's true, and the only way to stop them is imprison them or kill them, because they're super determined to do this. So that seems to be a problem of divine command theory. And maybe your solution is, well, God wants us to love each other, so he doesn't want us to kill each other. But it's like, but then you have to believe that that's true. So how do you get, I don't know, how do you get to that point? 'Cause it's like, well, I believe we shouldn't kill each other. I think that's a pretty bad thing that we do, but I believe that without a belief in God. So, it seems like we're all kind of just stuck in the same boat trying to figure out what rules do we want to follow. Um,
Right.
and I guess, for us pesky skeptical types, that we're like, why we always go, why doesn't God just clarify the matter and all this? And now I'm getting towards the question I'm supposed to not talk about, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to keep referencing that. People were like, what are you talking about? you know. Um, uh, okay, what would it mean? Let me go here because to get off that topic, because I can get to a different one. What would it mean for there to not be a god? If there wasn't a god, or maybe if there wasn't your god, it was a god but a different god, and slash no god. What would that change for you?
Um. Well, I mean, I'll answer the no God first because that's a more
Yeah.
obvious answer to me. I guess that all good things are done based off narratives, and that doesn't necessarily make them any less honorable, uh, uh, but they're arbitrary in a sense, and also that people who have done horrendous things and gotten away with it are going to be going unpunished, and uh, in that the universe is just a natural product, and because of that we don't have any ultimate purpose, and there isn't someone who's behind the screen who's loving you consistently or who loves everyone, and you don't have an ultimate recognition when everyone else is against you. You don't have someone who's on your side, and when everyone else doesn't like you, you don't have someone which you can rely on, and that's to me the what a world would be like without my conception of God. And As for another god, I guess it would depend on the one. I think I wouldn't be complaining very much if the Taoist god was the right one. I wouldn't complain very much if the Baha'i god was the right one, or the Sikh god. I think that those would be perfectly fine, and I would be able to live under those. But I think that if Allah was real, or if the pagan gods are real, I would take really big issue with them, because of just like Muhammad is a pedophile, and the pagan gods are just really nasty, and they didn't have they didn't have a narrative in which they offered us retribution. So that's my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah, to be fair, you know, if there was a god, it would just, depend on what the god was for me to make any comment on. Obviously, it's like no matter what I think about it, it's like whatever the truth is, that's the truth. I'm like, well, I didn't want that to be true. Well, what are you gonna do about it? I'd just be like, oh, that sucks, or hey, that's cool, and um, so it could significantly change. Of course, it would change how I view things, but it just depends, So it is a difficult question, which is why I asked it. It's, one I have in my book, a copy of Doing Infinite Hope Finite Despair on Amazon, is you must thought experiment, which I think is valuable, and maybe people can, is you must choose either there is a God but there's no afterlife, or there's an afterlife but there's no God, and what do you choose and why? And
There is
you,
no God, and there's an afterlife. There is an afterlife, but there is no God.
yeah,
Um, I would choose there is a God and there is no afterlife, because I still would find it preferable to know that my existence had meaning and intention to well, my existence didn't have any meaning or intention, but I may or may not go to heaven ultimately, and that's under for God's glory. So I
hmm,
think I would much rather prefer that. And also, God existing just not only provides a moral comfort, it would really change the scope of cosmology and philosophy, because if God exists, then that's really just like explaining a bunch of stuff, like why the universe came to be and etc.
hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to that question. It's just, it's one of those. I did, yeah, I put it in. I think I put it in my book because I had that question when I was still struggling to either convert or deconvert, stay converted, deconvert, or whatever. It was like, which do I value more? And I think my answer was, was some sort of afterlife, that but I also was like, well, then I struggled with that because I really grappled with it. It was like, I'm supposed to love God more than anything else, and all this sort of theological ideas that I had. um but if there was an afterlife, I wouldn't want it necessarily to be forever. I would want some sort of way out. It's like, if you've seen the show The Good Place, a Good Place.
I've seen the first couple seasons.
Yeah. It's I really loved that show, and the way that they resolve eternity, I thought was very clever. Where if you have a perfect eternity where you can do anything, people get bored, and so then they give them a way to stop. If they want to stop existing, they can at any point. Of course, if you choose that, then that's that. There's no coming back. Um, but I thought that was really a solution to it, because if humans are still like humans, you have and in this eternity you have perfect memory, and you can do literally anything you want. eventually you'll do all the things. I mean, it might take, well, you've got eternity, so eventually you're gonna run out of things to do.
Well, I guess with the whole getting bored in heaven thing, it says in the Bible, in heaven, no tears shall fall, no hungries will be starving. I don't think that we'll be capable of being bored. I think like
Yeah.
I think that's just like a neuron system due to problems with serotonin and dopamine. So I think in heaven, you're not going to be able to be bored. It's like it's going to be just like it's just going to be constants of good feelings.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that. I guess I can't really wrap my head around that. It's like basically I'm not me anymore. I'm not human as I recognize human. So, I mean, and that's a whole that's a whole nother kettle of worms. It's like,
Right.
um, let me see if I can come up with anything else, and if not, there's a lot of questions. People just it's like, oh, they're
I
piling on
know.
the questions. We're trying to talk, and they keep asking questions to
I
you
know.
directly. No, it's not fair. um, but hey, they can go to your channel and post all the questions there. So, um, let's try to deal with some of those because I think my brain is done with. I mean, there's so many things we could go deeper into. Of course, you could ferret out what you meant by Platonic. All these
Yeah.
technical terms. Like, what does that mean? I'm stupid. What are you talking about? Okay. Let's see where to start. Um. Uh. Okay. Maybe they'll start there. That's a decent one. If an alien had a purpose for my life, then would he say that that I'm just messing with him. Would he say that I had an ultimate purpose? So I guess if forget alien. What if a different human says you have a purpose for your life? I guess it's to make it external to humanity. Let's ferret out the question a bit. Let's say he's asking, that
Well,
something
if he
other,
just means
yeah,
meta, if he just means meta here, then yeah.
yeah, like it doesn't matter. Are you looking for it to be something that's not human that has a purpose for your life, and that gives you ultimate purpose, or does it have to be an entity that that's a god? What I guess that's what the question is.
I
Trying to.
I would I would be able to. I may not agree with it, but I would be able to appreciate anything which was my creator and give me anything which was my creator and had good intention and was and gave me a feeling of recognition.
Hmm. So does that mean your parents could fill that role?
It would have to be again like a ultimate
An ultimate creator, like at a
something of the
like
sort.
that made your the subatomic particles. Like,
Yes.
yeah, did you do that, alien? No. Okay, then you don't count. Kind of thing.
An alien, I think a super intelligent alien could probably make a simulated universe.
Yeah. Okay. Uh. Okay. So, would you prefer to be a slave to your god than to have an afterlife without it? You rephrase my
He's
question.
just rephrasing the
Yeah.
argument
Yeah.
with
So
a
with
buzzword.
the buzzword of slave, right? That
Yeah.
that is something that comes up again. That some atheists view the relationship as slave and all that. Um, since you don't seem to adhere to DCT, or maybe you kind of do, it wasn't really clear to me per se. But again, that's something maybe you can ferret out later on. Is what exact what's your interaction with divine command theory and all that. It doesn't seem well. If God tells you to kill your kid, do you do it because it's God, or do you say no? I mean, what do you do in that situation?
Well, I don't think that by God's nature, if God was real, then that means that everything he does is omnibenevolent. So if that is under my conception of God. So if God is real and he has the ultimate reason to do something, and I can confirm without a doubt that he's telling me to do that, then yes, I would do it.
Hmm.
But the thing is, it would be very conflicting for me if God were to tell me to do something for that, because I would be concerned more if I was being told a lie or hallucinating, because really I can't see why God would do something like that. I am aware that there's a story in the Bible where
Yeah,
he
Abraham, right?
reached the point where he was about to stab his kid, but God was just testing his faith. So
Right. And there have been sad stories in real life where mothers have killed their kids and said, "Oh, I thought, one said that they thought God wanted them to do it. The other wanted them to go to heaven because of the age of accountability." And, these are just tragic
yeah,
events.
it's just kind of like a gray area
Yeah.
when
Yeah, I've
answering
got
that.
I've got the video of Pascal's baby that covers that. Um this was covered earlier. I think I asked this to you as you said this. Uh, how does it? Well, maybe not. How does it follow that a God has an intention for you that it's meaningful to anyone else? Okay, so this is. Let's see if we can clarify this question more, or do you think that that's? No, I think that's probably good enough. You can ferret it out more if you want.
Well, it doesn't have to be meaningful to anyone else. It just has to be meaningful uh, to me.
Hmm. Let's see. Smashing. Let's see. Okay, so if God created can't words, I can't read this anymore. My brain went off. If God created humans for hammers, what? If God created hammers for the purposes of hammering nails, why would it follow that everyone else would need to use it for that? What's the contradiction in using it as a paperweight?
Well, I'm not sure if it's necessarily a quote unquote contradiction. I'm not. Well, to be honest, I'm kind of confused what you mean by contradiction here. I just find that like if there was no God and everything was a narrative, then that means that uh, in this, well, I mean, I guess the issue with this question is that it's very clearly painting a picture of clear intent. Like it's pretty clear that a paperweight is
Yeah, I guess
is
what it's
something which can be
asking
used for hammering.
Yeah, I guess what it's asking is okay, so God made humans for the purpose of X, whatever that is, worshiping God, loving God, I don't know, whatever. And, but we can use it, we don't have to necessarily fulfill that purpose, right? So
Right.
there isn't, yeah, I
It's so in the Bible, right? No one's forced to accept the gift of salvation or to accept God. It's not. No one is forced to do so. It's 100% your choice. And if you have a purpose in life, you know, no one's gonna no one's gonna force you to live a different way. However, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be consequence.
right. Okay, so and then he's wanting clarification on ultimate um how are you using the word ultimate? That was used earlier. The God, the ultimate purpose, the ultimate. Uh, if there's no God, you'd said, then there's no ultimate meaning. To we're just it's just we're here, and that's it. That's it. That's the end of the story. It's just that you know, yeah, it's all narrative and no absolute thing. So what I guess what he's asking is, what do you mean? Can you go into detail about that more?
Um, can you? I'm
Yeah,
still.
I'm trying to figure out what he means by this because you'd use the word ultimate a lot. So I think he's
Yeah,
wanting.
I guess ultimate. I just mean like meta.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess without knowing because of course these happen during our conversation, so it's kind of hard to figure out. It's like what did he say? Um, Let's see. Ultimate to mean God. Okay, that's all right. Uh, okay, so this is okay. So if I'm God and I tell my follower that I'm all good and all loving, then I tell them I'm testing them and that's going to kill or get right. So I guess this is not really a question, but let's make it into a question that I think that this is alluding to. Um, you know, which is God could tell us that it's good, but actually not be good. It could be lying to us for all we know. And it's like, oh yeah, go do this. No, I was just testing with you. I'm just messing with you. But the reason you did that was just because you're an evil god. Maybe that's kind of the thing. So would there be a way to know that God is good, and or we're just stuck hoping that God is good?
Um, Sounds a lot like Descartes' evil demon. I
Yeah, yeah, like well, I would say the evil god versus the good god, and
yeah
the trickster god, or even the god of the skeptic, where God exists, but it's a skeptic, and it's only going to reward people that don't believe in God.
yeah, and I guess it's just to me reductio ad absurdum. If God was the maximally greatest evil being, then I don't see why I haven't already experienced some sort of uh, just the most wretched hell, and why I'm in an earth in which I can still experience pleasure and etc. If
Yeah, yeah, it is a reductio ad absurdum of the reverse of that, is that the suffering is due to some reason that the good god has, so the pleasure is due to some reason that the evil god has. Yeah, I mean,
I guess yeah,
I think
but
it's just that the argument that particular argument isn't good, that's why that reducto exists. I don't think you use that argument anyway. So
no.
uh let's see. Let's see. Religions founded on they failed. Yeah. So I guess Snuffy is suggesting that Abraham actually failed the test. Abraham should have said no to God. Which is what I've said. That I said, I think that the better solution would have been for Abraham to say, no, God, you told me killing us wrong. And then God's like, yeah, yeah, you're right. That was the test. You passed. But then it's about obedience to God, and that's the message: is obey God, don't question God. And for me, that's a problem. It's like, look, I've got to be able to question everything, even God. You know, um, and it seems like you had some of that because you're like, I want to make sure it's God. But if you absolutely knew it was God, and God says to do something that you're like, I don't want to do that, but then you just have to do it. And I don't know. I have a problem with that.
That's fair.
you
It's
know,
uh, it's at times where it's very hard I find to submit to something like that where once you've crossed a bridge of enough justification that you can trust it or have a blind faith in the rest of it. Like if you have a portion, then you can trust the rest. Is just kind of my view. And yeah, there's stuff which is very hard for me to accept. Like one of the biggest deterrors to my faith was LGBTQ, and it was something which I took months upon uh, debating and it on my, and with myself and just over and over and over again, and it was just a very bad process of I'm disagreeing here and here, and I'm agreeing here and here, and it was just like, this isn't my obligation. I don't have to know this. I just need to move forward, and so
hmm,
I trust God in the sense that I'm not going to know everything, and I trust Him for all the things which He has shown me.
hmm. I'm guessing you're referring to the homosexual stuff in the Bible, which actually, of course, it didn't originally use the word homosexual. That's a later addition.
Yes, it
And
didn't. I've heard of a lot of translation discrepancy arguments, and I mean they have their purpose, but even in the Greek, although the word homosexual isn't explicitly said, it seems pretty clear to me that the connotation is just essentially male on male sodomy.
yeah, and if you look at it, a lot of it is being applied to priests. Not it's not being meant to be the general population, or anything like that. It's meant for like the priests or whatever. I mean, yeah, I mean that's we're getting into the weeds of theology where many of my viewers will be, who cares what the Bible's supposed to actually be? Well, I care, because then if we can get the Christians on board with that, then we get a better theology because I think we're gonna have this thing around for a while and. If I can't talk you out of it, at least maybe I can talk you into a better version of it or something like that, and that's something that hypothetically you could get on board with. It's like it's like it seems like it's like, well, I want to maintain belief in God because X, Y, and Z, or maybe I'm saying that as I shouldn't. Maybe it's not that you want to maintain belief, but I don't know. Maybe maybe that's a better question. Do you want to maintain belief in God, or is it something that just seems logical? Or
Probably. Well, I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say that I find the idea of God and Jesus Christ in specific, uh, are particular. Specificular is not a word, but
yeah, what it is now. Pacificer. Yes, we've made a new word.
yeah, it's just obviously it's comforting. I think Jesus Christ is definitely his personality and attitude is definitely one of the most comforting compared to all the other religious characters. Yeah, I appreciate the Christian story, but I do find although I guess I should clarify this. I'm not completely certain that Christianity is the right religion. However, I'm almost certain, at the very least, that God exists. And that's just primarily based off logic.
Yeah, I mean, my brother, who's a theist, was commenting, "We've got a good theist." It's like we've got somebody that accepts biological evolution, accepts the age of the universe, is willing to say that some of the arguments suck. It's like you've got all the hallmarks. You're gonna be a better, and really, when we were interacting with email, that it's like instead of doing apologetics, uh because it is to go a different route with this, to really dig into, instead of trying to say, well, I can come up with an answer to this really hard question. Of course, sure, but what, where did it, what's the oldest manuscript, who found it, where, when, and all these like deep questions that just nobody else seems to be exploring or answering or talking about. And the translation, can we translate it better, and all these sort of things like that. It's like, what's the history, where's the low, all that. Can we make a coherent timeline for Jesus's life? If not, what does that mean? All that sort of deeper stuff, where it really does seem like you're saying, look, I love God, I believe in God, it gives me comfort, that's that. And so I guess the question, maybe the really good question is, are you saying I believe in God and that's that, or are you saying there is a God? Because then there's a difference of burden of proof there.
I would say I'm a de facto theist.
What do you mean by that?
Uh, you know the Richard Dawkins scale?
No, not a fan.
So I know I'm not a fan of
I'm
them
like, what are you
either.
talking about? I don't know.
So essentially, a 7 is 100% atheism, or I am absolutely certain God doesn't exist. And then a 4 is I am completely unswayed on either side, or an agnostic. I don't even know if we can comprehend this issue. And then a 1 is I am absolutely certain that God does exist, or like Carl Jung said, I don't believe I know. I'm probably a 1.1.
Okay, which is
De facto, I am 99% certain as of now that God exists.
okay. But is your claim God does exist, or is it I believe in God? Because they're, it's like depending on that, that's going to change what you're doing. You know.
It is evident to me that God most likely exists.
Okay. We have a burden of proof. Uh-oh. We've
Yeah.
done it now, Bad Taco. You know what you've gotten yourself into. Prepare for the ride. No, but you knew that coming to YouTube.
Yes, I did.
Um, okay, Snuffy wants to really know, and we'll finish here because uh, why why do you believe? And I think we kind of got a lot of this answer already out of you, but let's just really dig in. Like, why do you
Okay.
believe in God? Like, what? Like, okay, yeah, you were kind of raised with it, so it was familiar, and something got you hooked, and
Right.
so what? Can we ferret that out a bit more?
It was the argument which did the most for me was the when I first read Alexander Prusa's paper on Leibnizian cosmological arguments, and then I was hearing I got in a discussion on a server called Politics and Religion, and these it was just like the one of the most like straining conversations of my life where these guys sat in this Discord server and debated this in VC for like 7 hours. And I was so surprised at how convincing the case was compared to every argument I heard previously. And I think I remember hearing a theist talk about this. A lot of times you can say, arguments ultimately are based off of clashes of intuition. Uh, this argument just like really made me like stop in my shoes and be like, okay, this is a serious contender here. Like, this is something that if I was an atheist, I would need to start working on the spot.
Okay, and we're going to be diving into that in a video series, and
Absolutely.
and so that puts me in a weird position because that basically means if I win, well, I mean, if logic prevails, it's not about me winning, but I want
Yeah.
to win. Then I deconvert you, and I ruin it. I ruin life for you because
Well, you want to ruin life for me, but there's
I
I would
make
say
life miserable.
that was
Join me in the abyss.
no, it's not going to be like that.
Yeah,
But
no. I don't think that if you deconverted, um, you would see it that way because I don't. I mean, I get where it's like, okay, yeah, ultimately there doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, well, I don't know, and I don't care because it's like, in a trillion years.
I've never heard. Wait, just one sec. I've never heard before how the principle of sufficient reason leads to modal collapse.
The what now?
The PSR
Oh,
leads
I
to
don't
modal
know. No,
collapse.
let's just ignore that. I don't even know what the hell he's saying, so I'm just gonna ignore that. You can deal with that in a video. I
All
don't know
right.
what he said.
I've
I'm
never
gonna put
heard
it
that
up
before in
here.
my life.
He said words. I don't know what he said. I'm ignoring it. Sorry. I was in the middle of a thing. Now I'm gone. What was I saying? Something about contradictions in the Bible. No, that's in the route. That's what we're going to deal with next time.
All right.
No, that I don't view, in a trillion years, the universe will face heat, death, and that will be that, unless humans or something is around to stop it somehow. So it's like, oh no, nothing matters. No, it's like, yeah, things are they're not always great, but reality as it really is pretty amazing to me, and I'm like, wow, this is, I'm not always grateful to exist, but most of the time I am. And
Right.
um I guess I don't find this sort of nihilism sort of thing, that's just not present for me. So who knows what would happen if you deconverted? Obviously I know for me it was painful, and I wouldn't want to put anyone through that. My goal has never been to deconvert anybody. My goal has always been to teach logic and reason and critical thinking in my own weird way of doing that. And so, yeah, well, it seems like you've gotten into the philosophy. Have you learned informal and or formal logic?
I'm taking a couple of courses on first order logic right now.
Okay, great. Well, stick with. I'm gonna get you a couple books to read up on logic or something, because my
Right.
thing is informal logic. Um, if I can find a free copy for you to send you of the one that I love. Okay, so yeah, I guess that's good. I guess we'll end there. Because my brain is tired now, and I don't know why we decided to be this late. I don't remember whose fault that was. I'm gonna blame you. You're like, I'm in a weird time zone. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, when do you want to go? Not this time. I'm like, fine. What about, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night? And you're like, yeah, that's fine. That's like 4 o'clock at night in my time. What? Why are we doing it this late? I don't know. I almost slept in past this anyways. What is reality? Why C19 shot make me tired? I don't know. All right. Anyways, thanks for coming on and doing this and answering all the weird and bizarre questions. And I think we're gonna have a lot of fun coming up. And
All right.
I also was really, really impressed that you were willing to change out your arguments on your channel and improve them. And it's just like, oh my goodness, somebody's like listening for once. Oh my word. They're and then instead of attacking these kind of loose non-arguments, you'll actually go after an actual yes, please. And I've got a few I can send your way that of
All right.
arguments against God or whatever,
Though,
if you
not to
want.
tick you off,
No, tick me off. Come on, piss me
um,
off. Do it, bring
my
it on. I haven't watched your
I was
video
gonna
yet.
do the most low hanging fruit theistic argument I could think of.
Look at the
That was
trees.
no, not look at. I'm saying an actual
Oh,
the
okay.
most
Yeah.
low hanging fruit
Yeah.
argument, which isn't in it just random
Yeah, go on.
nonsense,
Go on. Go
and
on.
it was gonna be Pascal's wager.
Oh, well, that's not even an argument, though. I
Yeah, I
mean,
guess
it's just
reason against apathecy,
yeah. I mean, yeah.
and
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not going to
my
be
response is Pascal's baby. That's really my
all right,
response to that.
and I'm not going to be
No,
endorsing
yeah,
it. I'm just gonna be
no,
like explaining the pros and cons to my argument,
yeah. It's
and
it's
then
it's
I
bad
mean my
though.
audience, and then like
Yeah,
me
that's fine.
ranking
I
it.
mean, no, I mean, absolutely crush it. But yeah, I
Oh
mean, I'm
fuck!
not gonna. Whoa, what the bleep? He threw a cat at the
My
window
bad, my
there.
bad.
What happened? He threw his cat at the shade.
No, my phone
No,
fell.
that's what happened. I'm pretending. All right. Anyways, so why BadTaco14? Let's deal with that, because you're gonna get asked that at some point.
Um, it was the most random thing. I was just walking to class one day, and when Ollie A was popular and for Fortnite, and everyone was making fun of him. This was in middle school. Me and my friends were just like parodying him
No,
and saying,
I don't know any of those things that you just said.
okay, well, essentially, it was just like this is the guy who got on everyone's nerves and like just hyped up just things which weren't interesting on YouTube, and he would like,
Uh,
and a bunch of little kids liked him. Me and my friends were making fun of his channel, and we were parodying him. And one time I just said, "Hey guys, BadTaco14 here," and I did the thing, and everyone started laughing, and so
so
I
then
was like,
yeah,
and it sounded nice off the tongue. So
yeah. I mean, hey, look, there's worse ways to come up with your avatar.
I mean,
See, if
deconvert
you
man
were
is just
talking
like stating the
Minecraft,
obvious.
well, yeah. I mean, that's look, I'm an obvious sort of just kind of guy. I'm just like,
Mm.
hey, I was. What am I gonna call myself? Because I was Infinite Hope as a theist. So I was like, well,
Were you what were you raised as, a YC or a
no,
liberal?
thank goodness for that. No, it was also Lutheran. So we've got some stuff to talk about there, maybe.
All right.
Because Lutheran, we had the creed that we read, and I can't remember it now. If you started to say it, I probably would. Um, and we'd say blessings to you, and that sort of stuff. So, but Lutheran, I think, is it is the earliest split from the Catholic stuff.
Right.
But
Well,
there's still
Orthodoxy is.
yeah, there's still some stuff in there, but the Catholic was it prenup, whatever the books are called, I can remember. uh what are the Catholic books that are
The
there?
liturgy,
The ones we exclude from Christian canon.
the Apocrypha.
Yeah, the Apocrypha. um we didn't have that, and I didn't even know anything about that until way later in life.
Oh yeah.
Anyways,
I was actually gifted a copy of them pretty young.
yeah, I've never looked at it, and because I'm a skeptic, I don't care anymore. So
That's fair enough.
it's like, whatever, I don't care. All right, so check out Bad Taco's channel. He's gonna have a revolution of new videos and stuff, and
Hopefully,
we're gonna be doing a thing back and forth, and that's gonna be a thing. And check out I don't know, any other links or things you want me to throw up there to people to click on, or
no, not really. But I was just gonna say, email me about the video series if you want.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we'll figure it all out.
We'll deal with that after I press the button.
And I had one question for you.
No, okay, fine.
On the topic of denominations, which one do you find to be most correct in doctrine?
Man, I don't think any of them. Right, as a skeptic, because I think that, well, I mean, when I get irritated at Christians and go into the theology, I'm like, here's where you're wrong theologically speaking, which I do every now and then.
I didn't say it was correct. I said most. Like, you got to think about it this way.
No. But
think about it this way, right?
Yeah, I think that
if you were to,
yeah. No, I know what you're saying. I don't. I think that they all, that because it's so much tradition, and you're not, Bible study isn't Bible study. Nobody does the history of the Bible, nobody does the archaeology, and nobody knows where anything, I said, who published the Bible that you're holding? And this one person said, God published it. I'm like, no, that's not what a publisher is. It's like, you don't even know who published the Bible. And it's a weird question, but who published your Bible? Shouldn't you know? I mean, it's the most important book in the world.
Probably Origin.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't know offhand, so it's like, well, what, shouldn't you know who it is and what they do?
Well, I guess not published would be the right word, but in terms of forming the codexes, it was definitely, I know for a fact, it was Origin and Tertullian.
Yeah, right.
And then lastly, the Ecumenical Council.
Right, but then of course there's a modern publisher, and all that. So they could have some agenda, and
yeah.
But I mean, of course, the easy one, which many Christians can, so you name all 12 disciples. There's people that can't do that, so it's like, well, you're not taking your religion, you're not taking this seriously. Why should I?
Right.
It's just the lazy Christians annoy me. So that's a good answer, because I don't have an answer. I'm going to say none of them, but the lazy Christians piss me off. I guess more because I used to be Christian. So I'm like, you didn't even quote the Bible to support your point. You're a false prophet, and I'll do that, every now and then. All right. Okay. So thanks for being here. Thanks for tacoing, and everyone else, subscribe to you, and be sure to dislike the video while you can, because YouTube's taking that away. Perfect news in YouTube. Why? That's a dumb idea. It's so dumb.
That one didn't really make sense.
And then the next time we'll cover biblical contradictions, and the other thing that I wasn't supposed to bring up, but now I don't remember what it was.
Problem of evil.
Thank you. Problem of evil, of the evil biblical contradictions, is what we're going to be talking about next time. Yeah. We're not going to be. I'm messing with my otherwise worthy opponent because he said not to do it. Now I'm telling the thing that he wasn't supposed to tell, and I said that this is where I'm going insane. Come insane with me. Be insane as I hit the button. Oh, and then the thing, and the waffles and the pancakes and the. You're not being insane with me. He's not becoming insane with me, and then I press the button. Oh, lose your mind, Bad Taco. No, only he's not doing it. He's not losing his mind. It's not Bad Taco saying things that make it sound like you're